Hey everyone, it's me Dylan, and today I'm going to be doing another WandaVision review. So this is episode 7, Breaking the Fourth Wall. This episode was released on February 19th, 2021. And it stars Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda, Paul Bettany as Vision, and Kathryn Hahn as Agnes. And this was created for television by Jack Schaefer. Now let's get into the episode. Almost every episode we've had has been based around a sitcom, and the sitcom for this episode is Modern Family. And so we open up after the events of episode number 6, and Wanda's in bed and Vision's nowhere to be seen. We know that he had tried to get out of the hex and was unable to and was coming apart, and so he's laying in a field. And so Wanda's laying in bed and she's kind of a mess, and she's like, well, I inadvertently expanded the boundaries of the hex and things did not go quite as planned, so I'm just gonna take a little quarantine style staycation. So we see Wanda and she goes to the kitchen to get some cereal, some breakfast. And she's making cereal and she pulls out the milk carton. We start to see the red TV static on it and we're like, that's kind of weird. And then she pours the milk, and when she sets it back down, it has changed to a glass bottle instead of like a carton. We see that other items in this house have this red static, and then they change to a previous version of the house, so from a different decade. We see that a couple times. We see the TV, the chair, and everything like that start in the staircase, and it's very interesting. And we see that Wanda is not really sure at all what is causing this or why this is happening. Then we get to the opening credits, which seem kind of weird. So it's only Wanda's name, and it's just a bunch of different ways that Wanda is written out. And then we get to the end where it's Wanda, and then they finally add the Vision to it, and then underneath it says created by Wanda Maximoff as like the show creator, which is interesting come to the events of the ending. And Agnes decides to come to the house, and she's like, well, why don't you let me take the twins? We'll let you have a little relaxing day, Wanda. And so Agnes takes Billy and Tommy back to her house, which is very dark and drab. It's very interesting looking. And then we go to the outside world. So Monica and Jimmy are going to meet Monica's contact, which everyone thought was going to be Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four. Unfortunately, it was not. It was, as far as I could tell, nobody that we know. It was somebody named Goodner, and that's about it. So they have this little base camp set up right outside of the hex, and Monica's like, I'm gonna go in, and they're like, okay. So they brought her a sword space rover thing, I think that's what they called it, and they also brought her a legitimate space astronaut costume uniform, and that's also interesting considering that she's already been in the hex without any issues, so I guess they're trying to prevent her DNA from changing anymore. So Monica's trying to go through the hex, and she gets to the hex and it starts changing its density to match hers, so it's not allowing her to go in. And the vehicle is, here's the hex, here's the vehicle, it's trying to go in, it doesn't work, so then it starts to go up. Jimmy realizes that the hex is reconfiguring this vehicle into something else. So they tell Monica to get out immediately so she doesn't get sucked back in inadvertently or potentially reassembled in some like weird way with this vehicle. And so Monica gets out of the vehicle, and then she's like, I'm going in, and just books it right into the hex. And we see this like kind of trippy thing. We see multiple versions of Monica, and then she finally gets out, and we see that her eyes have started to glow blue, which her eyes are typically brown, which is quite interesting. And when she looks around, when she first gets in there, it's almost like 3D vision. If you're watching like an old 3D movie with like the glasses, it looks kind of like that. And so this is her origin story of how she obtained her powers. And we see a little bit of it later on, but not anything too crazy. But she apparently can turn into or harness any of the electromagnetic energy that's around her. And so when we see those 3D things, those are what she sees, the electromagnetic energy around it, because one of the things that she looks at is a telephone pole. All while this is going on, we have Vision, who is on the outskirts of the town by the circus, which was the previous Sword headquarters, and he meets Darcy, and Darcy is full-blown into this thing. A lot of people were saying that they thought she was going to be a character, but as far as I could tell, she isn't, but we don't know. I couldn't tell for sure, but there did look like there were blue streaks in her hair, so I'm not sure quite what that would mean, but we have her, and she's talking to Vision. She's completely in the fantasy of this world, and Vision goes and takes her out of the world, and she's like, oh, let's get back to Wanda. We gotta tell Wanda that they're trying to get you. They steal a truck, a funnel cake truck from the circus, and they're driving back into town. And there's like a ton of stoplights, and they're stopped at a stoplight, and they get ready to go, and in comes a construction crew, and they realize that it's Wanda or somebody who is trying to stop them from getting back into town. So then we are back into town, and Monica has run all the way from the edge of the hex into town and runs into Wanda's house and is like, Wanda, we need to talk. I need you to know that they're trying to get Vision. And she's like, stop. No, you're not going to tell me these lies. And she like binds Monica up in a chains with her powers and takes her outside and then drops her, and Monica lands in the superhero pose, and we see blue energy around her, and they're talking, and all while this we get a glimpse of Dottie, which is interesting. We haven't seen Dottie since the second episode. And then Agnes comes over and whisks Wanda away, saying, we're done here, it's all over. And so Wanda goes back into Agnes's house, and she's like, oh, you want some tea? And Wanda's like, sure, why not? And then she starts to notice that something's off. Billy and Tommy were supposed to be there, and they're, as of right now, nowhere to be found. So she's like, where's the twins? And Agnes is like, oh, I think they might be in the basement playing. So Wanda goes down to the basement, and it looks like a kind of normal basement. And then in the corner of the room, there's a doorway with like tree stump growing out of it, and there's all these like roots and things. And she walks in, and we go into this like cathedral looking area where there's a bunch of arches. We see a weird book in the corner, and Agatha comes down and shuts the door and is like, Wanda, you thought you were the only magical person here? And then she's like, hello, nice to meet you. My name is Agatha Harkness, which is pretty crazy. We get into an intro for Agatha's television show, and it's Agatha all along. And we see that almost all of the things that have happened to Vision and Wanda have been because Agnes has done them. Agnes brought Pietro back, or the version of Pietro, which is interesting. We didn't see him at all this episode other than the back of his head at the end. And she did the talent show portion. That weird thing where Herb was cutting through the wall was because of her, and she killed Sparky the dog, which was crazy too. So that is it for this episode. I literally just finished filming the actual review, and I happened to be looking online, and there actually was an end credit scene, which I completely missed because there hasn't been an end credit scene in any other episode. So I was like, oh no, I need to go look at it. And so I watched it, and definitely make sure to check it out if you have not already. I'll explain it a little bit. So we see Monica, who is going around a house. We're not really 100% sure whose house it is because we haven't really seen anybody's house other than Wanda's house. And she goes around and finds like the cellar doors, which are those like old school ones that come out of the ground and you can open them up and go down the stairs into the thing. So she opens them up and we see the roots and stuff along the walls, and we see purple energy, which we know is Agatha's energy. Then who comes up but Evan Peters, who says, "Snooper's gonna snoop," and then it cuts to black. And let's get into what I liked and didn't like about this episode. Boy, oh boy, was that reveal at the end insane. I loved the little intro of the Agatha All Along television show. I thought that that was great, and I love to see how this changes the dynamics of the show. It does require a couple more questions. Is Agatha working alone, or is she working for someone or with someone? We did see Dottie in this episode, so there was a lot of rumors at the beginning that Dottie was playing Mephisto and that she was like a secret undercover agent type thing. I don't think we ever saw Dottie on the, like, conspiracy board that was in the Sword headquarters. So we don't know for sure who Dottie is actually playing because we didn't see her. So we don't know if she's actual real citizen or if she is not. But I think that that's interesting that they brought her back up and gave us another glimpse of her after we haven't seen her since the second episode. Another question is, where are the twins? Are they alive, or have they been... something else has happened to them? A lot of people thought this was going to be something that happened in the last episode, that the twins disappeared, and that's kind of what caused her to rip open the multiverse. But as of right now, we have 2 more episodes, so I'm interested to see how that plays out. I also really liked that there was, which they might have been doing this all along and I just didn't notice it until this episode, but the aspect changes between when we're going inside of the WandaVision television world and when we're on the outside, the aspect ratio changes to like a widescreen versus full screen, and I love that you can see it actually changing. I think that that's actually really super fun. And there really wasn't anything I didn't like other than maybe I wish that Evan Peters was around for a little bit longer. But that is it for this review. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you thought of this week's episode of WandaVision, whether you liked it, you didn't like it, and why. And let me know if you have any theories about what you think might happen next. And remember, if you're not already subscribed and you'd like to be, please hit that subscribe button down below and give this video a like if you liked it. Thank you guys for watching and have a great day. Bye.